Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, history buffs, and adrenaline junkies, welcome back to Timeless Sagas. I'm your host, and today, we'll be climbing to new heights, quite literally, as we delve into the gripping history of mountain climbing. So, fasten your harnesses and gather your ice axes, as we embark on a vertical journey through time. Now, you might be asking yourself, when did we humans first get the crazy idea to scale massive mountains? Well, dear friends, our story begins with the ancient civilizations. You see, mountains have always had a certain allure, a mystique, if you will. Cultures around the world have long associated these towering peaks with gods and spiritual realms. In fact, many ancient societies believed that ascending a mountain brought them closer to the heavens and, therefore, closer to the divine. Take, for instance, the ancient Sumerians, who as early as 4000 BCE, constructed ziggurats, massive, step-like structures, to emulate mountains and bring them closer to their gods. Or the ancient Greeks, who believed their gods resided at the summit of Mount Olympus. They even had a word for ascending mountains for sport, oros, which means mountain in Greek. But the real pioneers of mountaineering can be traced to the 13th century, when Tibetan Buddhists began scaling the Himalayas to establish monasteries on their lofty peaks. Now, let's fast forward to the Age of Enlightenment, where our story really starts to pick up steam, or should I say, altitude? In the 18th century, European scholars began to take an interest in the natural world, and mountains became the subject of scientific inquiry. And, just like that, the race to summit the highest peaks in Europe was on. Enter Horace Benedict de Saussure, a Swiss scientist and mountaineering enthusiast who, in 1760, offered a hearty reward to the first person to reach the summit of Mont Blanc, the tallest mountain in the Alps. This challenge captured the imagination of adventure seekers across Europe and, in 1786, two intrepid climbers, Jacques Balmat and Michel Gabriel Picard, claimed the prize by becoming the first to conquer Mont Blanc. With this feat, the duo unknowingly sparked the birth of modern mountaineering. As the 19th century rolled around, the craze for climbing only continued to grow. Europeans began forming alpine clubs, with the first being the prestigious Alpine Club of London, founded in 1857. Not to be outdone, the Americans soon followed suit, establishing the Appalachian Mountain Club in 1876. These clubs would go on to play a crucial role in the development of mountaineering as a sport, organizing expeditions and providing training for climbers. While mountaineering initially emerged as a pursuit of the wealthy and well-educated, the sport quickly caught on with the working classes as well. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, thousands of people flocked to the mountains each year, seeking adventure, communion with nature, and respite from the drudgery of urban life. Now, let's talk about gear for a moment. You see, our early mountaineers were a resourceful bunch. They didn't have the fancy equipment we have today, but they made do with what they had. In the beginning, climbers relied on simple iron crampons and wooden ice axes to help them navigate treacherous terrain. Ropes, which were initially made of hemp, were used for safety, but it wasn't until the 20th century that climbers began to use carabiners and other modern climbing gear. But, as with any great adventure, there were challenges and hardships to overcome. In the early days of mountaineering, climbers had to contend with a lack of accurate maps, unpredictable weather, and poorly understood medical issues, such as altitude sickness and frostbite. Despite these obstacles, climbers continued to push the boundaries of what was deemed possible, and by the end of the 19th century, almost all of the major peaks in the European Alps had been summited. And then, there were the Himalayas, the ultimate challenge for any mountaineer. At the dawn of the 20th century, the race to conquer the world's highest peak, the mighty Mount Everest, was well and truly underway. Despite numerous attempts, the summit remained elusive, with climbers thwarted by extreme cold, hurricane-force winds, and the crushing effects of high altitude. It wasn't until 1953 that the impossible was finally achieved. On May 29, Sir Edmund Hillary, a New Zealander, and Tenzing Norgay, a Sherpa from Nepal, became the first climbers to stand atop the world's highest point. Their triumph marked a turning point in mountaineering history, and people around the world celebrated their awe-inspiring accomplishment. Now, of course, we can't talk about the history of mountain climbing without addressing the darker side of the sport. As mountaineering's popularity grew, so too did the number of accidents and fatalities. Climbers began to take greater risks in pursuit of glory, and the mountains claimed many lives. This grim reality led to the development of search and rescue teams and advances in safety equipment, such as avalanche beacons and snow anchors. Today, mountaineering remains a risky endeavor, but the lessons of the past have made the sport considerably safer for those who dare to reach for the sky. So, there you have it, my friends, a brief, but thrilling, glimpse into the history of mountain climbing. Throughout the ages, the allure of the mountains has captured the human spirit, driving us to conquer the seemingly unconquerable and redefine the limits of human endurance. As we continue to push ourselves to reach new heights, one thing is clear: the saga of mountain climbing is far from over. Thank you for joining me on this vertical adventure through time. If you enjoyed this episode of Timeless Sagas, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more historical deep dives. Until next time, happy exploring, and may your own sagas be timeless.